Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining this Global Investigative Journalism Network workshop with journalist and trainer Henk van Ess, who will be walking us through how we can make the most of the world's most popular online searcher. We're talking about Google. So my name is Andrea Arzaba, and I have the pleasure to work as GIJN's Spanish editor. Every day I work with investigative journalists from around the world, and especially those in Latin America and Spain. And today's session will be focused on helping journalists worldwide to find the best answers online in the shortest amount of time. Henk will also go through nifty Google formulas to uncover juicy and hidden information, both from searches and social media. The workshop will also show how to rephrase questions for better results. Without further delay, I'd now like to introduce today's guest, Henk van Ess. Henk has trained Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist of the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal in open source research, which is the art of finding public information often hidden in plain sight. In addition to that, his work as a trainer with us at GIJN, he served as an assessor and professor for Poynter's international fact-checking network, and he's been an instructor for highly regarded bootcamps all over the place. Before we start, a little bit of information about us at GIJN. We are the largest global network of journalists, investigative journalism organizations, with 235 member organizations in 89 countries. But we work everywhere, right? With nonprofits, with commercial organizations, and with freelancers. And it has been an extensive range of resources and tip sheets to help journalists. That's what we usually publish at GIJN. So I invite everyone to visit our website, to follow us on social media. And we want to make sure we're also hearing from you during this event. So please send your written questions and messages in the Q&A box, and we'll get as many as we can. You can start asking questions actually from now. And I would also like to remind you that we have live interpretation from English to Arabic, Russian, and Spanish. So please, if you would like to use these services, click on the interpretation button and select the language that you prefer. Finally, we will be recording this session for posting it later on YouTube. So if you want to see it again, it will be available in YouTube in the English channel and also in the different languages channels. Anyway, I don't want to keep any more time from you, Henk. So let's go. Thank you so much for being here.
Good afternoon. This is Henk from the Netherlands, but maybe it's good night, maybe it's good morning. I'm so thrilled to have a full hour and probably 50 minutes with you to look at your maybe biggest friend on the web. I don't know. This is a session with rather two faces. I think the first 30 minutes will be a session about some random Dutch guy who is bashing Google and saying, oh my God, Google is not doing what I want. But then things will clear up. The 30 minutes we have left will use the same Google to fix the problems we will see in the first 30 minutes. And we really have to talk about Google because Google is trying to please as much as people in the world, wherever you are, with as localized and precise results. But if you are a member of the investigative journalism community, we will see this approach won't work all the time if you are doing hyper-focused research on very specific topics. So as our colleague already told, I travel around with my computer and try to empower people to find hidden gems in front of their nose in open source. And yeah, it's basically you're speaking with a guy who made a hobby out of his profession, or maybe the other way around. So I like to talk at the start of this session, and you will know that it is a little bit grim the next 30 minutes. I will bash Google a lot, but we have to talk about the problems in Google for our specific needs, investigative research. And after we've done with summing up the problems, we slowly will have a look at the solutions. And at the end of the session, you will get a summary. Okay, we saw some problems. Here is a list of things how to solve those problems. So what is the mismatch? In general, you could say that we, as investigative journalism people, that we often research stuff that people need to know. We think it's important that you know about global warming, and we think it's important that you know about pollution or crooked politicians. And maybe people don't want to hear it, but we don't care. We want to share. Google, by default, shows what people want to know. And it basically means if you have simple questions and if people mistype stuff, that Google will try to repair it and think, okay, what does the majority want? And then show an answer that fits that state of mind. That's not our state of mind as reporters. We are trying to be very hyper-focused. We want to find a detail of a detail. We want to find more about deforestation in Nepal. But Google looks to those two words in such a way that it will be popularized, and you will only get in the first few hits if you don't search too precise things that are in the popular domain. And that's often stuff we already know. And that's the opposite of what we as investigative reporters want to do. So how big is our problem? Well, here you see how big the problem is. This is really the worst proof of how big the problem is. Just making the word big very big. That's, of course, not my intention. So let me talk you through the problems I encountered in the last few months and why I'm a little bit amazed by this. So let's go to planet Earth and let's go to a small island. And I'm just wondering if you ever heard of this island. Could you be so kind and type in the chat? Did you ever hear of the island St. Kitts and Nevis? Can you type in the chat if you ever heard of it, this island?
We're getting a lot of yes, Henk.
Yes, I can also see the screen and see that the people say, yeah, we can see that. It's, by the way, the place where the founder of Telegram and VK, a Russian social network, is also an inhabitant of. And well, maybe you know a little bit about Hamilton in the US. You can look it up. But normally this island, although most of you know that this island exists, it's not in the radar in the news. So maybe it's on the news when this happens. And some of you will see that the screen shaked a little bit, because when there is an earthquake, when you can see that here right now. So if I would type in earthquake St. Kitts, Google will automatically say, okay, there was one. And the latest one had a magnitude of 3.7. And here you will get some additional information about the historical earthquakes. So this is why you love Google. If you are interested in finding earthquakes in St. Kitts, eat your heart out. But what happens if you try to combine St. Kitts with very specific topics? If you're thinking about something, and let's make up a research topic. Let's do some live research right now, okay? Now, we know all about the Russian sanctions, and this is a good question here. Can the world cope without its oil and gas? And well, I'm going to go hyper-focus mode here and just look if there are any repercussions for or any ramification for the small island, St. Kitts, when we're talking about energy. So I'm a little bit inspired by other small islands. They are fearing the sanctions against Russia, that it will mess up their energy. So that's why I thought, well, let's research that for a brief moment in time. Now, you wouldn't probably have thought this morning or evening or afternoon that we would look at the energy production of this small island, but here you are, here it is. The energy production, the energy generation mix of St. Kitts. And you see that most of the stuff they try to run it with diesel, and that's not Van diesel, that's fuel diesel. So if you see that, then you see, okay, maybe they have problems with getting diesel. I don't know. Now, could you be so kind, because, you probably are already on a computer because you are using Zoom, to type in St. Kitts Putin gas supply into Google. And then we're going to discuss what nowadays can be the problem. According to Google, it's not a problem, but for us researchers, we do have a problem. So let's have a look at this mismatch. So most of you can type it in. If you can't, just sit down and relax, and you will see it unfold on your own screen. Now, this is what I typed in. It's not the most brilliant query yet. I didn't use any quotation marks or any nifty tricks. I'm just behaving like a normal user. St. Kitts Putin gas supply. Let's see what pops up. And it looks like, that there are a lot of hits. It says here there are 47 millions of hits, which is a lot. And it looks like that we already have something to work with. There must be a strong connection because we get a lot of hits. But now look closer. If you look closer at one of the very first hits, in very small letters, it says missing kids, which is in itself rather silly. I just typed in kids, and now Google says, no, I'm going to remove it. Why? Yeah, because I think it's better for you. No, I think this is better for me. I just typed in the word kids. Don't touch it, Google. Yeah, but this is better for you. Okay, let's go to the second link. Again, the word kids is removed. And a third link, and it could change a little bit over time or depending on where you're typing this in. And third or fourth or fifth hit, St. Kitts is completely removed. And Google says, I have something about gas and Putin and supply. You will like that too. No, I was in research mode. I want to combine this little detail with these other details. And this is the very first problem we have to address. There is a solution, but for now, this is the problem. So some experienced users who are definitely in this room will say, okay, we can fix that easily. We can fix that by using quotation marks or make the formula a bit more precise. But first, let us talk a little bit about how we researchers probably think that Google should work. It's like a game of memory. Now, this is a cultural biased thing. I found out that in the US and in my continent, Europe, this game is well known. If you don't know the game yourself, you see here, it's a simple game. It's a child game. You have a lot of photos. You can see what's on it, and you have to guess till you find two of the same photos. And this game is called the memory game. Now, in general, I think when I'm playing with Google that I'm playing a memory game. So when I type in a slightly better query like St. Kitts between quotation marks, and that way you will allow Google to just search for that phrase and not for the single words, then I expect that Google will show me only sources which have those words in it. St. Kitts Putin gas supply. So this is a little bit silly metaphor. But yeah, I like to make a point later on, so that's why I use this metaphor. Now, if we do that, St. Kitts, Putin, and gas supply, type that in straight into Google, we are full of joy because we get a lot of hits. And again, you're probably thinking, hey, I'm on track now. But you aren't. There's really nothing in this whole list that will have sources that are about all those keywords. Now, I should probably prove this, and here's some pudding and the proof. And I don't know how the translators can translate this metaphor, but let me say it more simply. Let's have a look at the links, and let's have a look at the links. The first hit, does it contain the word kit, as shown here? No. Does it contain the word saint? And it went a little bit fast, but you have to trust me. No. Although it was the first link. That's annoying. I'm going to type in the word saint once more in the second hit, and there's nothing. And I go to the third one, why Bulgaria, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to type in saint as shown here, and there's nothing found. And this is getting right, the reporter to not drown in the issue, to instruct Google. No, I only want that word followed by that word. But Google says, so that's not helpful. As a father, sometimes I only want to have the same shirt every year. So here you see, this is not me, by the way, but some random guy. And I like to have the same shirt. Why? Yeah, because I like to have the same shirt. In Google, you want that the words you carefully choose, I hope, want those words to be executed. And why does Google not take in account what you just typed? Because it looks at signals and it looks at, okay, how often is that part of your question mentioned in the source? And if it's a weak signal, it tries to give you the stronger signals. So in this particular case, it means that strong signals are gas, Putin, supply, but St. Kitts, that's not the strongest signal. So here you see once more my memory game. I typed in St. Kitts, Putin, gas supply, but Google thinks that the strongest signal are Putin gas supply. So basically the whole memory game, this metaphor, I chose this on purpose. It means that Google says, I have a card which is way better for you, but no, I really want to find only this. So that's our problem. And look, here you see some slides where immediately the word supply is removed, Putin is removed. So even those signals are not strong enough. And this is plain out silly. So if I would type in St. Kitts between quotation marks, Putin gas supply, one of the hits says, let's get rid of Putin and gas and supply. Why? Because Google gets confused. This is not in the news and there is no connection between those things. And Google wants to please us. But hey, we're not pleased now. We are basically put on the wrong track. So I asked this to Google, why is this happening? You already got some answers here because of the signals in the words, but one of the very last slides will be an answer of Google why this is happening. So we will come back to that slide later. There are even stranger things in Google where there is no connection between what you type and what you see, where the memory game is completely rigged. Now, does anyone know Wanjechi Mutu? Can you type in yes or no? And most people answer no. Well, it should be a famous artist from Africa, but okay. So what I'm going to do now is combine a famous artist from Africa with a random island, as you saw here. So what I'm going to do right now is do something live here. I'm going to go to my browser and show you what is promised and what we in reality get. So here were the phrases you just saw on my sheet, and this is now me typing in something live. So here we get some hits. And you clearly see, oh, well, it already says St. Kitts and this person. They are all in the snippets. Do you see that? All they are in it. If you can see it, trust me on that one. So the first 10 hits are all with those people, with those phrases, I mean, combined. But if you go to the original source, we get the artists. But if we search for the island, there is no island. And if I go to the second one, we get some book from her, but there is no mention of the island. And this is getting even more frustrating. There's nothing there. So we are losing valuable time here. So yeah, I don't like that. I hope you can understand my slight irritation. If I would combine St. Kitts with random current events, with, for example, Chicago shooting, you see that I still get hits like 10 killed in racial motivated shooting as US grocery store. And if you click on the source, Saints Kids is not in it. It's ignored. And if I combine it with some series, which is in most Netflixes, in most of the continents you are from, the Umbrella Academy, I'm thrilled. There is a connection between Saint Kids and the Umbrella Academy, Google says. But if you click on the links, nope. Now, I'm going to combine her almost desperately with Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is such a famous person. Maybe she came to Saint Kitts, or I don't know. And although we do get some hits, which tend to be some combination of both of those words, we don't see, can make any sense why we get the homepage of Taylor Swift. So I need an editor here. So I edited myself. I have 20 more examples where I combined Saint Kids with random news events, random popular people, or let's take one more, even stranger. What do you see? A duck or a bunny? Please type in the chat. What do you see? A duck or a bunny? And the super intelligent people see both. Well, it has nothing to do with intelligence, I think. You just have to take your time. And if you look carefully, you will probably see sooner or later both. Le canard, as somebody says in beautiful French. Now, let's combine duck or bunny with Saint Kitts, and I still get hits. Whatever I do, whatever I combine Saint Kitts with, I get hits. And remember, if you next time type in the Nepalese word for deforestation and combine it with duck or bunny for some kind of research reason, and you will get hits, you will probably be so happy and overjoyed. And there is a connection between deforestation and ducks and bunny in Nepal, but when you look carefully at the sources, there isn't. It's almost like I'm gonna throw in once more the metaphor of the memory game, that you are saying, hey, I like to see a photo of a green Christmas tree with a blue ball. And Google says, sure, but not blue balls today. We're gonna get rid of the blue balls. So in this particular case, it will show us duck or bunny, but not Saint Kitts. And if I combine it with some internet memes, scumbag Steve, well, you get the point now. Whatever I do, what a mess. I was at a conference in Denver, and there I saw this sign, and it feels like this sign. Where to go, what to do. But I'm not done yet, because we have still 10 or 15 minutes to go, talking about the problems you have as a researcher when you don't take care of the nifty things in Google. So I have a question to you all. So just type in yes or no. I typed in some words here in Google, and then as you clearly see, you get a number of results. Now, here's the number of results, a little bit more highlights, so anyone, regardless your language, can understand what I'm talking about. And my question to you all is, who of you is looking so now and then at this number of results? Please type in yes or no. Okay, so some people say always, some people say so now and then. And while the number of participants is now over 500, that's great. It's really, let's have a party here. Let's talk about the number of results. So the people who watch at the number of results probably do this to make a first assessment of, okay, what's in it for me when I researching deforestation in Nepal and I get a lot of hits. I know, okay, I can use Google to find information. Those people who don't look at it are probably the wisest people, because not long ago, the numbers of results have no strong correlation anymore with the actual number of results. And to show you quickly what I mean, now let's have a look at this example, okay? I typed in Supreme Court, New York gun law. That's a little bit an American example. But if you look down at the bottom of the screen, you will see this, and you can click on Google and say, okay, I just found the first 10 results, and you can click on the number, and you expect that you can click on on and on and on, but it suddenly stops. There are only 130 results about Supreme Court, New York, and gun law, which is a little bit strange because that's probably not what you expect, right? Only so, that's not much. Now, if you type in Supreme Court, New York, gun law, the computer promises, it's 1.96. And we investigative reporter always look at what is promised and what do we get. Many great stories are made because you're thinking like that. And in this particular case, you see you get less results than are promised. The number of results in this particular case is restricted to 130. Now, if you would add something, so we have now only 130 results, and say I would add something which is called a Google Doc or Google Operator, where I basically have the equivalent for, hey, show me only official documents, but hey, I can't type in the word official documents because in official documents, it never says, I'm an official document. So I'm going to go for the next best thing. The form of the document is probably often a PDF. So that's why I'm instructing Google now, hey, out of those 130 sources, can you show me only the file types which have PDF behind it? So what do you think if I would type in this in Google? Will the number, you have three options here. Will the number increase? So will I get more results? No, you have two options here. Or will you get less results? So more or less, please type it in chat. And almost everyone says less. And some of you even says, well, way fewer. Now look at this strange fact. If I do this, I get more results. And that's strange. And that's why I said to the GIJN, we have to talk about Google really, because this is interesting. Why do we get more results? Well, because we are more precise, Google will also be more precise and show us more than the more generic searches. And that's very interesting. And it's even interesting if you look at this. Yeah, you could argue that the hits are misses now, because if I type in this, I get in reality 130. And if I type in this, I get in reality way more, well, a little bit more. But yeah, in general, we found a way in to solve those problems. The more nifty formulas we use in Google, the more precise information we get. Now, this is a silly example too. In itself, it's already strange to notice that if you type in Joe Biden and president, the real number of results is just 130. Well, nobody believes that. It must be mentioned way more in sources, but Google will not show all those results. If you type in file.pdf, it goes up. Now, if I type in another problem, by the way, I'm still bashing. If I type in contract Grubhub, Google will nowadays give me, poor Henk, everyone is searching for contract Grubhub. So you probably misread what you said. I'm going to correct it. And more, it doesn't say anymore, hey, did you mean this? So let's skip this example and go to when I want to find the pizza. No, I shouldn't skip that. So if I want to find the best pizza, Google will look where I am. But all those parts you see now on the screen are not from the natural organic search results from Google, but special departments from Google. This is basically partly from Google Maps. And then you get something called Google Knowledge Graphs, where they try to monitor which questions are asked and where do we find the answer. Then you get the actual review sites. And then you get top stories, which is basically generated by Google News. And only then, 3 or 4 screens later, you get the original sources, which will play the memory game. And of course, this is often marketing speech. This is also a problem in Google. So this is not a nice session. I'm only telling about problems. But here is the bias in Google, a summary. There is no audio. This is a moment of contemplative, of thinking, of dwelling on what we just heard. So here's the summary. The number of keywords in the old days, which is in internet 2 years, 3 years ago, are mostly executed. Nowadays, not if similar words is more popular, if some words have a stronger signal according to the logic of Google than others. And the example was what I just showed you, contract Grubhub. The number of results are mostly organic. It means Google plays the memory game. Nowadays, it's not. Google uses more techniques to match. And yeah, one of the examples is best pizza. The number of results was very precise in the old days, and now it's erratic. And yeah, I gave you an example. The maximum number of results is unlimited in the old days, and nowadays it's restricted to 300, and it changes so now and then, but to 300 or 400 hits. And that's something we should dwell on a little bit. So if you have a great investigation project and you're typing in very specific words and you get 300 hits, and you're probably thinking, okay, that's all there is. No, it could be that there is more. And the silly counterintuitive thing is that you have to type in more operators to get more. I hope you understand this very counterintuitive way of treating your best friend. The quotation marks were, for most of the people in this room, the best weapon against information overload. And now it's not per se executed anymore by Google if other words have a stronger signal. And we saw that clearly with St. Kitts. Hey, let's talk about the solution, because we have a whopping 30 minutes left. And now we're going to talk about the solution, because I'm done bashing Google. I think Google is great, but you have to know how it works. And it tries to please the big audience. But people who do research, professional research with Google, won't like that the algorithm is now tailor-made to the need of the masses. I wish you a lot of audience, but you search like a researcher, right? Now, I think I couldn't bore you anymore with this question. What is the mission statement of the Norwegian firm Syntef for the Brazilian market? I hope you couldn't care less, and I hope you don't know, you're not from Norway. Because say this is a question, I like to discuss a strategy with you. I often use if things get tough. And that is not looking at my question, but trying to predict the answer. So if I type in mission statement and some company from Norway, Syntef, and then the word Brazil, that will be my very first try in Google. And if I don't get the proper hits, the good hits, I will probably change some words, but not Syntef and not Brazil. I will probably change the word mission statement. Could you be so kind, and this is probably only possible for the people who are mastering the English a little bit better than I do, I hope. Could you come up with some synonyms for mission statement? So could you be so kind? If mission statement doesn't work, what are alternatives? Can you type in the chat an alternative? And as a group, we are incredibly strong. Motto, key message. I see something in Arabic: claim, objections, credo, objectives, vision, policy, goals, branding, duties, values. My God, we should work together all, because you're so fast. And this is why we are hired as investigative reporters in the first place. We are quick and we are creative. So when I'm still talking, but yeah, for the people who are viewing this at home later, I get, I think, over 40 synonyms. And this is also my objection, because which of the 40 synonyms will work? I don't know. I'm just playing a guessing game, and it depends on how important this is for me if I would continue, or if there is a deadline, I have to stop. Now, there's a different approach. What I often do with these questions, when I fail to find something, forget what I am and trying to be fast and creative, but behave like a photocopying machine. And this is what I mean. I just type in mission statement into Google, and I put the words file type : PDF behind it to see any mission statements. And here you see two mission statements, two random mission statements. Those two mission statements seem not to have much in common. It's one from Amazon and one from McDonald's. It's always good to see that those companies have a world vision. I'm not sure how they want to do it, but they have some ambition here, right? They want to be either a customer-centric company or a customer's favorite place. That's our lofty goals, don't you think? Now, I'm probably a person who is of the school of the holistic approach. I'm not looking at differences here, but at things that are the same. Do you see something in those two random hits, number 1 and number 2, at that moment in time, that is similar and not different? If so, please type it in the chat. And I applaud Sanjana Saxena, who clearly sees it in less than 10 seconds what it is. It's subtle, but it's important. It is to be, as you can see here. And here it is to be. These are so-called stop words. You ignore them. You don't use them in your queries because, hey, it's just 3 single-minded words like is, to, be. But maybe it is something which is significant of any given mission statement. And if you research this a little bit further, you will see, yeah, it certainly is. So look, I think it's almost poetry. Here's a formula which will help you to solve already many of the problems we saw earlier, the number of hits, and yeah, some other problems we saw. I just type in is to be between quotation marks, then the word Brazil, and then I pinpoint the words I want to find to the source I know. And the source was in Norway, I told you. So the source is then syntef.no, and with the command which Google allows us to use, which is a great way to pinpoint information to a specific source, site colon will give us the word nobody. I have to look up in the chat later, but I think nobody mentioned the word ambition. And that's my point. If you don't know that's the word ambition, you will never come up with it as a synonym. So I call this the synonym trap. If you are typing what is the capital of the Netherlands, of course, it's Amsterdam. Then you will be helped by Google in a split second. But if you have hard questions, very specific questions, yeah, then you have to work yourself a little bit harder and make a little bit more math out of your Google. So I call this thinking like a document. I wrote a lot of books about it in French and in English, and no, not in English, in German and in Dutch. And yeah, here is a way, a trick, which I think is important to know, which we can use to solve the problems we saw earlier. But before I continue, I'm just going to ask, who is already using this trick, typing yes or no? Now, there is a majority who says no, which may mean that there's a risk that the people who said yes will doze off now and think, oh, heard that, seen that. But please bear with me, because there is something very specific about a round thing we have to discuss. So what problem does it solve? Well, this solves partly the problem I want to have sane kids in the same sentence as Taylor Swift for whatever reason. Now, what does around do? First of all, you have to know how to type it in. And you would probably argue, I know how to type in around. Maybe not, because you have to shout to Google. You see, it's in capitals. So bear with me, you should really use capitals. Otherwise, Google will search for the word around itself, and you don't want that. And what are those silly looking parentheses? Well, basically, you see a number there. This is a random number. You can choose that number yourself. I chose today for 7. And it basically means the word friends should be 7 words, sorry for that, away from the other words, document fraud. But it could be both ways. So here you see friends, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you see document fraud on the 7th place. Here it's very precise, but it starts with France. But here you see the other way around, and you see that those words are nearer to each other. So around 7 means not exactly 7, no, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or 0. So why is this an important tool for every investigative reporter in this room? Because you are often have already a hunch. And how do you go from hunch to headline? By addressing Google in a very polite way. Well, basically you're saying here, shut up, Google, and listen. I know that there's a connection which you don't see in your signaling thingy and your algorithm, but I want to know if there's a weak signal, and I want to find that weak signal, but please let me, and Google will let you. Now, I had 2.5 wonderful weeks in March at the Washington Post, where I was working with a lot of people. And one of those people was this person. I think most of those people who sat at the room were Pulitzer Prize-winner. Well, I basically saw a lot of nice people sitting at that room. And the question I had to her, to one of those reporters, was, Beth Reinhardt, did you ever visit the Netherlands? And she said no. Now, let's have a look at Google and how Google's logic works. If you are a normal user, an inexperienced user, and don't care about all those nifty tricks, you would probably type in something like this: the name of the person and then the country. And if you see this, you will probably think, oh my God, there are many, many results. For some reason, you get it now in Norwegian. Sorry for that. Beth Reinhardt, Netherlands, over 1.7 million results. So it must be, yeah, she must be a hit in the Netherlands. It's not true. If you are an intermediate user, you will probably immediately use quotation marks. And now you see that the number of results goes down because you are searching more precise. Google will be also more precise. But it's also not the truth, because we have to use an experienced user. You are it now because you just heard of the trick. You will use around, but there's one more catch. If I type in Beth Reinhardt between quotation marks, the word around 12, I want to force Google to search for any sentences probably where those words are near each other. But you have to be aware of the fact that if I use the word Netherlands as is, that Google also will look at Holland or variations. Sometimes I think that's fine. I don't care if it's spelled like the Netherlands or Holland. But if I really want to be precise, then you have to be a pro user. And the pro user will type in this: Beth Reinhardt around 12, and then the word Netherlands also between quotation marks. And then you will see what the reality was. Google doesn't have any sources where they link Beth Reinhardt with the Netherlands. And that's what Beth Reinhardt said herself in the room in Washington too to me a few months ago. So that's why we need all this, dear people. I don't want to annoy you with those tricks, but we need those tricks because of the algorithm of Google. This is correct. And now you see, certainly we can make a little bit sense out of the old examples. If we will now use the knowledge we have by typing in Saint Kitts around 12, Taylor Swift. Maybe you I don't like to talk only about tools. I also love to talk about strategy. So you have to know that it is probably wise to use, if you want to predict a title of some kind of report or a headline, yeah, stick to 7, 8, 9. If you want to predict a sentence, yeah, stick to 15 to 17. If you want to have both words or both things in your first paragraph, probably go for 25. And now we see, I don't know what it is, a Wonderstruck 4-piece set for a woman. I never bought it. But we see that we are now in KN, which is basically the domain name of Saint Kitts. And somebody is selling Taylor Swift stuff from that island. Okay, that's interesting. Now I know that I can maybe type in scumbag Steve and ask the computer, hey, is scumbag Steve a thing on that island, on at least the websites from that island? And then you will see no results. And with the other method, we saw a lot of hits. Let's go to another part here, and let's have a look at the power of color here. So recently I worked with some people from Nepal. These were environmental reporters, and they were aware of one big company who makes how do you call it? Well, stuff that saves crops, but you could also call it bad stuff that kills insects. Fertilizer. No, it's not a fertilizer, it's basically a pesticide. So thank you, Christopher and Sanjana, to bring me back into English words. So pesticide. And here's the train of thoughts, because in itself, a trick in itself is, you have to also use a strategy. So they knew that there are some companies in Nepal who copycatted the pesticide and looked like the market leader. So you see the market leader on slide 1, and here you see the words for pesticide in Nepalese. And do you ever search in color? If you would go to Google Images and type in the word green and white, because that are the colors of the market leader, you also get the other companies who sell this pesticide and which copycatting that. So if you would type in words, copycats of pesticide in Nepal, good luck with that. Google will try to desperately find signals. Here you say, as an investigative reporter, what's significant of the bottle of the market leader? Green and white. What's significant of the competitors? They also have a green and white bottle. So that's interesting. And here you see that if I have a Serbian politician, I want to find that politician on that island. And I'm going to include the colors of the flag of St. Kitts, green and red. Be careful what you wish for. You get very precise the flag, but only if you use those colors at the end of your query, otherwise it won't work. Let's end this session. We will have 15 more minutes, I think, and then because we started a little bit later, and then some room for questions. How we solve the different problems we saw. So you just saw me type in best pizza. I typed it in last week when I was in a town called Aurora. But there's a different way to treat this. So if you type in best pizza, Google will look, where are you? And will open up all kinds of methods they use to please you. But maybe I'm stubborn. Maybe I'm thinking, well, I want to make my own decision here. So this is what I'm trying to do, thinking like a document. If a rating is 4 or 4.1 or 4.2 or 4.3 or 4.5, it must be a good pizza. Well, we don't know, but let's start with the best ones. So you can ask Google to ignore their own algorithm and just say, hey, show me some pizza in Aurora. And then the rating has to be between 4 and 5. As you can see here, I get only 4.9, 4.9, because this is what I predicted. So this is the trick with the 3 dots. Let me ask you, who is using the trick with the 3 dots? Type in yes or no. And one of the delegates is writing a title of a book of a good friend in search of me. His name is Daniel Russell, and he's a search anthropologist at Google. And I really recommend his book, The Joy of Search, which will help you a little bit more about understanding the algorithm of Google. So let's talk about the trick with the 3 dots. So say that I really want to buy this television set, and I research it in detail, and I only want to have this television set, and Google says, well, this is the cheapest one I can find right now. Then I want to overrule Google and say, is it really the cheapest one? So let's have a look how you do that. This is a little bit complicated, but hey, again, you have to put effort in your query. to make Google play along. So the first part just says, find me something between 200 and 300. And the beauty of it is, it doesn't search for 200 or 300 itself. No, for the whole range. And then I want to have only this serial number. And look what I did at 3. I'm excluding the source, which I thought was a little bit, not in my price range. So I'm excluding what I just found. And then I found this one, Best Buy, even a little bit cheaper. It was only a one-time offer, and it was not in those search engines yet. So this is why I really like to be in control and know what to do to drift, to sift through all those results. Can be a long and boring task, but yeah, when you are searching very precise, it can be quick. And you can also use this whole way of thinking to find out what is the influence of China on universities in the US. So the very first thing you have to find out, okay, what is the entity what tries to influence students in China? And there is an organization called, I'm going to show you right now, it's called mncssa.org. And by thinking more in formulas, you see here the equivalent for a question which can be asked in the newsroom. Let's find out if there are sources in China who talk about this organization we have in the US. And here you see a summary of that. And you probably will notice that I didn't type any keywords. It's just math. Just show me that certain entity. Is it mentioned by any Chinese source? And this was a great query to find more. You can also do this. I hope you understand this. So this was our interesting organization. Can we find if there are any people talking about this website outside the website itself? And then we even find more Chinese websites which were not on a Chinese domain, but on sites.google.com. So that's why I really use those dorks. And if this is the very first time you see these formulas and you think, oh my God, this is way too much for me. Hey, there will be a videotape of it, so you can rewind it over and over and over again. But there's a lot of material on the web where you can learn about those Google dorks, and also at the website of the Golf India Juliet November, I'm going to spell it for you, .org, of the organizer of this session. There's a lot of material. So let's have a look at how we can solve our problems here. Your weapon against the bias in the first 30 minutes is something called Google Docs. That's math, that's nifty formulas, that's tricks with the 3 dots, that's file-type PDF, that's thinking like a document, combining lateral with literal thinking. That's hard, but it is doable. It has a learning curve, but in the end, it will be super rewarding because you ask Google to dance with you in such a way that it will help to make you a better assessment of your hunch. So let's have a look at the problems we had and how we solved them during this session. The keywords problem is that it's often a popular vote, right? If I type in contract Grubhub, then I can get contact Grubhub. I didn't tell you yet, so that's now a good moment. But if you see this problem, that you type in some keywords and Google doesn't say, did you mean this? But just thinks you're stupid today, you are really one of the majority. This is rather an elitist course, I think. We are really thinking like elitist people. No, we don't want what the people, most people want. We only want what we think is wise, but hey, let it be. Then the quotation marks will have also a different meaning, that you can use them for single words, but then they have a different effect. It's basically saying to Google, hey, that algorithm thingy that you make Netherlands, Holland or something, don't use it. Please listen to me, okay? For once, please. The results are often not organic. Best Pizza Aurora is an example. The trick with the 3 dots or thinking like a document will solve those problems. The maximum number of results is restricted today as we speak to 300. It can be, if you hear this tape later, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. But the more keywords you use, often you get more results, which is odd and counterintuitive, but yeah, trust me on this one. The quotation marks are really ignored so now and then. If other signals like Taylor Swift, hey, who can be Taylor Swift, if these signals are stronger. But if you combine it with a round, you have a better chance. And if you look, the people who are actually following this live in the chat box, you will see a lot of tips for how to get Google stuff. You can also contact me via email, as you can see here on the screen. So this is my email address, but I'm probably best reachable via Twitter. That's, I don't have a open public website. You can probably best contact me via Twitter and ask me stuff, or send me a direct message. And please support this wonderful organization who organized this, because you get all this interesting information for free. Now, before I'm open for questioning, I really want to show you that thinking like a document using Google Docs allows you to search in a different way in social media. So, are you interested in that? Should I tell you? Yes or no? And this is of course, I'm pleasing the crowd here. Here we go. Now, if you ever would have the urge to type in sky and dog, I think the director of the movie thinks it's the best movie ever. Maybe you disagree, but if you ever would type in sky and dog, you will get what you want, the movie Sky Dog. Well, maybe that's not exactly what you want. You probably want this. You want to have a sky and a dog. So this is a little bit more precise. So the next 5 minutes, I'm going to address something which, again, was a bad day. We started this whole session in a grim way and being very somber about the quality of Google, but we saw that the same things that Google did can be conquered with Google Docs. Here's a moment in time, I think it was 2 years ago, that Facebook was kaput, which roughly translate wasn't working. Now, suddenly my photos were gone, and it just said, oh, here's a photo of somebody, maybe more people and close up. But basically we are looking into the soul, well, not the soul, let's use the opposite word here, into the artificial intelligence of Facebook. Basically, this was the computer saying, hey, I just saw something. The image may contain one person. And look, if you type into Google Images, image may contain, and then your keywords, and then redirect it to Facebook, you will get only photos of Facebook, which basically could be interesting because you're now predicting the artificial intelligence of Facebook. And this is a little bit difficult to understand. You could probably say, I'm gonna just type in sky and dog into Facebook and click on photos. Yeah, but that's a different trigger than this one. This is basically more precise, just saying, no, I only want to find what's under the hood, what's inside the machine, what is the artificial intelligence. The computer thinks this is a sky and a dog. Now, you will probably argue, hey, why is he ending with such a silly trick? Because this is not journalism. How can I use it for journalism? Well, bear with me. If I would type in maybe an image of a red table with black plates, you will get it on Pinterest, but that's only good for housekeeping, not for journalism. But here it is. If I would type in maybe an image of an accident, Dallas side colon Facebook, then be careful what you wish for. You get accidents from Dallas. And if I change the word in maybe an accident of Tampa Bay, I could only stuff. You will find those photos in Facebook, partly if you type in those words and click on photos, but this is more precise. This is the computer's judgment. And this is how I came up with the whole thinking in the very first place. When I was at a client, they asked me, can you find photos of the war in Ukraine, which are not warlike, like people playing something or playing football. So this is what I typed in, maybe an image of 6 people, football, Ukraine soldiers. There you go. So this whole thinking like a document is really, really helpful. And that concludes my last example. And now I like to go to the moderator and ask her if she can handpick some of the questions which were asked either in the chat or in the Q&A, because we still have some time for that.
Of course, Hank, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. I'm going to read a couple of questions to you. The first one is, how do you determine which number to add with around?
Implicitly,
can we use... okay.
Sorry, I was already on the go and trying to answer that. So implicitly, I already tried to answer that. So you have to mimic the structure of the text you want to find. So if you want to find a headline in a sensationalist newspaper, you shouldn't use 20, because those words are probably not in a headline. Those sensationalist newspaper are using short headlines. So you should always think about what do you want to find. If you want to find it anywhere in a document, but not that the first phrase is at the bottom and the second phrase is on the top, but they have to be in the same paragraph, go for 25. And if they have to be in the same sentence, go for 15.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Another question. Do you recommend using incognito or anonymous browser to get more generalized results?
In general, to repeat your question, the last 2 words, you could say, hey, if I go incognito, maybe there's less influence. But no, there isn't. So the major problem that algorithm of Google tries to work with signals, which the majority of the audience wants, you won't beat that with going in stealth mode.
Perfect, thank you. Another question, how can I use Google to find content from Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram?
Well, I just showed you. So that was just the last 5 minutes. Basically, by predicting those words in the artificial intelligence, but let me throw in something new. Say I want to find people in Facebook who hate their face, which is a sensitive subject. I could go inside Facebook and type in, I hate my face, click on groups. But then you will only see groups where somebody has to have mentioned the group, I hate my face, which is rather a little bit straightforward. But there's a different way if you use the technique of Google Docs. So the screen is still open. And here you see one way to search in Facebook and all the other networks, social networks. I'm going to look at, okay, what has any given group in common on Facebook? Well, if you look at the link, but most people don't, but if you would look at the link of any given group, it always contains facebook.com and it always contains the word groups. We can make advantage of that and use, again, a Google Doc, which is now on the screen, which means in URL, show me not the words on the website itself. No, show me that this must be in the link, but then I'm only searching in groups. And this is a great time saver, because if you now type in, I hate my face, you won't get the names of the groups. No, you will get the people who actually say this, and then find out what the names of the group. And then you see, it's mental health awareness and support group.
Thank you, Hank. Another question related to the last example, not this one, but last one. Was the wording maybe important in your search?
Well, there are 2 ways to search for it. So Google has this artificial intelligence, and Facebook and Pinterest and Instagram too. I would prefer to go for this, maybe an image of an accident. So this is basically me predicting the so-called tags, the so-called artificial intelligence tags of the information Facebook thinks it sees. So this is the correct way to do it for now. Maybe they change it, but then I will come back.
Perfect, Hank. And one last question. Can you talk about the tool time?
So I'm going to ask you to type in the question into the chat, because the audio is gone.
Oh, sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can hear you again.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, can you talk about the tool time?
Can you talk about the tool time? I don't, hey, this is a great way to end this little course. I don't know the answer. No, I'm not familiar with the tool. So the answer must be no, or I'm misunderstanding the question. Can you elaborate?
I'm not sure if journalist Martha Mendoza wants to elaborate more on the question, but I also think this is a great timing to end this session. And unfortunately, we've run out of time. But thank you so much, Hank, for your time, and thanks everyone for coming online today. Oh, I have the follow-up now from Martha. It says, yes, under tools, you can limit the time of the post.
Yes, that's correct. Now, I thought she meant was talking about a new tool called Time, but she's talking about the time machine in Google. Maybe I should. Can I end with one last tip for everyone?
Yes, please.
I think that we should cherish that Google allows us to do all those wonderful things. So one of the things as an investigative reporter, you will always notice if you do follow up on stories which were already published, but then the investigative reporter kicks in and has to find out information about the same subject, that you will find stuff which is, do a quick example. I'm gonna end with a person almost nobody in the room knows. So if I type in this person of this name, I see it's a contemporary Kenyan artist. Say this person is in the news, then the first hits will be all about her being in the news. She won a prize or something happened to her, and we want to get rid of that information. And then I would also always suggest to go back in time. Click on any time, go to custom range, and go back to the moment that the person was not in the news yet. So if you do that, you have a huge advantage. Last anecdotal example of that, there was a big fire in a company in the Netherlands, and the company was called Chemiepak, which is Dutch. And I just typed in the word Chemiepak in Google Images and went back in time 2 days before the actual fire. Then I saw that the youth fire department visited the premises of this factory, and I saw one barrel with something on it called H2SO4. Well, I never paid attention in chemistry class, but this was something, oh, sulfuric acid, this was amazing. Then we called some specialists and said, hey, 2 days before the fire, a barrel with sulfuric acid was in the neighborhood of children. What does it say about the safety, health of this company? And then a few chemists said to us, this is amazing, this is outrageous. So that's why I suggest, I think it's a very good tip, the time to always go back in time before the moment shit hit the fan.
Thank you so much, Hank. Thanks, everyone. Please be sure to watch GIJN's Twitter feed and the website for details for future events. We invite you to go to our YouTube channel to see the recording of this session. And we will actually be hosting a second session with Hank later on September 15, and which will be we will be talking about using LinkedIn to investigate. So everyone is welcome to that. And that session will not be recorded. So make sure you subscribe once a subscription is available. Once again, thanks everyone. It was great to see in the chat people getting online from all over the world. So thank you so much. Have a great day.